I would just like to acknowledge that Auntie Georgina has been supporting our work since the launch of our Reconciliation Action Plan last year, and has been very generous with her time over the past 12 months. So I reiterate my appreciation on behalf of the WEstjustice team for your generous welcome to country today and for your ongoing support. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of our lands and elders past and present. I note that sovereignty was never ceded, and we are and always will be on Aboriginal land. I welcome you all to today's launch and acknowledge our distinguished guests, including the Honourable Melissa Horne, Minister for Consumer Affairs, Gaming and Liquor Regulation, Ports and Freights, Fishing and Boating. We also have with us today the Residential Tenancy Commissioner, Dr. Heather Holtz, along with the Member for Tarneet, Sarah Connolly, and the Member for Footscray, Katie Hall. Finally, I acknowledge our WEstjustice Board Chair, Dana Nelson, our Board Directors and WEstjustice staff. Many have joined us. It gives me great pleasure to be here today to be a part of this launch. This powerful report, authored by Caitlin Luth and Susan Huang, detail the findings and recommendations resulting from our place-based partnership with Study Melbourne, focusing on housing and tenancy needs of international students. It's built on the premise that we are all entitled to a safe and secure home, yet many in our society, far too many in the West, live in substandard conditions, face unlawful evictions, exploitation and injustices due to the intrinsic power imbalance between landlords and tenants, or residential rental providers and renters, as they are now known. The legal framework positions renters as consumers with the assumption that they have a choice of products and consumer protections. The reality is very different. Many report that they feel powerless and at the mercy of a system that favours landlords. Recourse relies on individualised justice, access points, and a general lack of regulatory effectiveness and enforceable rights. The problems that we have sought to address throughout this project are those experienced by international students who travel from all around the world to Australia to learn and obtain qualifications. Many are forced to tolerate substandard conditions and lack awareness, capacity, and empowerment to seek redress. Even those who do act are forced to fight for their basic rights, while also struggling to pay their bills, secure employment, study, and manage their lives. This individualisation of our current justice system results in a person-by-person, case-by-case reactionary approach. We therefore advocate for a more effective monitoring and regulatory system that prevents these issues from occurring and provides collective protections and consequences. Sadly, these fundamental issues are not only confined to our international students. We know that this reality also impacts domestic students and others in our communities who live in insecure housing arrangements by virtue of their financial and personal circumstances. There is a large canopy of people who exist between secure tenancy on the one hand and social and public housing on the other. This canopy is made up of non-compliant rooming houses, sub-tenancy licenses, homestay and the like. It's as if those stuck in this canopy are too poor to secure long-term tenancy arrangements and not poor enough to access social and public housing. So they are left with no other option but to remain in these substandard situations until their circumstances change. This issue has been exacerbated by the pandemic and compounded by increased casualised labour and job insecurity. Our homes are now even more important as they morph into our workplaces and our classrooms. Our homes keep us safe and isolated when need be from the risk of exposure to the coronavirus. Yet for many, this is a precarious state and one that contributes to increased stress, anxiety, mental health, and overall instability. Therefore, it's arguable that there is no greater time to address this issue to provide people with the basic human right of a safe and secure home, and to reduce the risk of overcrowding and homelessness, along with associated health problems. Through this report, we've spotlighted the problems, workable solutions, findings, and recommendations. We will work with government and key stakeholders to expand upon these learnings and find ways to address the broader issues. This will potentially include a place-based legal service at Victoria University embedded in the student support services to ensure that we continue to support international students, but also broaden the scope to domestic students and members of the general public. I would like to acknowledge our deep and continuing partnership with Victoria University, and in particular, the Dean of the College of Law and Justice, Lydia Zinus, who's here with us today, along with Pam Christou, Legal Placements Coordinator. This project was made possible through the generous funding of the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation. We've worked with Erin Dolan and the team at the foundation for many years, and it was Erin's insight into these issues that assisted us to refine our focus and embark upon this project. This project is an excellent example of effective partnering and communication between a philanthropic and a for-purpose community organisation. We also thank the Department of Jobs, Regions and Precincts for the funding for the service delivery component of this project through Study Melbourne. Shortly after receiving the funding in 2019 from the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, we hired Caitlin Luth. Caitlin is a talented member of the WEstjustice team and worked closely with Susan Huang and our tenancy program manager, along with our legal director, Matthew Martin, to deliver services to our clients and build the evidence base for the details contained in this report. I also acknowledge Joe Nunwick for his work in the early days in creating the initial vision. Caitlin is here today to present the details of this project along with the findings and recommendations. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce her to you all. Caitlin was herself an international student, having studied in Bogota, Colombia. She completed her Juris Doctor at the University of Melbourne in 2015. She originally came to us as a volunteer through the Footscray Community Legal Centre. She's also volunteered at Fitzroy Legal Service. Caitlin was a member's assistant at the National Native Title Tribunal and has interned at Cape York Land Council. Prior to joining WEstjustice, she was an associate to Justice Champion, Criminal Division, Supreme Court of Victoria. I would like to invite Caitlin Luth to turn on her mic and camera and present an overview of her report. Thank you, Caitlin.